So today in this video we are going to discuss about the processor unit. We already know the five classic components of a computer, right? So the components are input unit, output unit, memory unit, ALU unit and the control unit. The ALU unit and control unit together can be called as CPU. Okay. So the simplest way to interconnect these functional units is using bus. So we can have a single bus structure which can be used for only one transfer at a time. So we can have the buses for transferring the address value, data value as well as the control signals. So based on that we'll be having three types of buses: address bus, data bus and control bus. So these buses carries the data or address or control signals from one system module to other. The CPU includes some special purpose registers, general purpose registers, arithmetic and logic unit and control unit. Let us look into this in detail. MAR or the memory address register is a special purpose register which is used for specifying the address for next read or write operation. So it specifies the memory address for the next read or write operation. Then MBR holds the data. Memory buffer register, it is a special purpose register which holds the data to be written into or receives the data read from the memory. Then program counter is another special purpose register which stores the address of the next instruction to be executed. So the address of the next instruction to be executed is stored in the program counter register. Then instruction register stores the instruction before decoding. Instruction register stores the instruction before decoding. Some general purpose registers are there like R1, R2, etc., which can be used for storing information at the time of execution by the user. So this can be used for the temporary storing the information at the time of the execution. Then the instruction decoder decodes the instruction before execution. So it analyzes the instruction and it identifies the operation to be performed. So it decodes the instruction before execution. Then the ALU unit performs all the arithmetic and logical computations, and the control unit generates the appropriate control signals to control every action inside the computer. So these are the various CPU components. So as we said, we'll be having some general purpose registers, special purpose registers, ALU unit and control unit. The five fundamental phases of the instruction cycle are fetching an instruction from the memory, decoding the instruction and register read, execute the operation or calculate the address, accessing the memory operand and writing back the results. The first two phases are common to all the instructions, but the order of the next three operations depends upon the addressing mode used by the instruction. Now let's look into how we are going to execute an instruction. So first step is we need to fetch the contents of the memory location pointed to by the PC. PC stands for the program counter which holds the address of the next instruction to be executed. So we need to get the address of the instruction to be executed, right? So that value is there in the PC. So we are taking the contents of the memory location pointed to by the PC. So PC is having the memory address of the instruction. So we are taking the contents of that memory location and the contents will be loaded into instruction register. So this instruction register consists of the instruction to be decoded. Okay. So PC holds the address of the next instruction. So that address, when we look into that address, we'll be getting the instruction to be executed. So that instruction is loaded into this instruction register. So this phase can be called as instruction fetch phase. Instruction fetch phase. So the address of the instruction which is there in the address specified by the PC is taken out and it is stored in the IR register. Okay, then this PC need to be incremented to point to the next instruction address, right? So we are going to increment the PC by 4 since we are having the byte addressable memory. So we are incrementing the PC content by 4 to point to the next instruction to be executed. Then carry out the actions specified by the instruction in the IR, that is the execution phase. So in the instruction register, we are having the instruction to be executed, right? So that instruction is decoded by the instruction decoder and the operation is identified. So we need to carry out the actions specified by the instruction in the IR. So that is the execution phase. So, for every instruction implementation, the first two steps are identical. So, as we said, the program counter holds the address of the next instruction to be executed. So, we are taking the memory address from the program counter, and in that memory address the instruction to be executed is stored. So the instruction is fetched from the memory address and it is loaded into the instruction register. So now this instruction register holds the instruction to be executed. Okay, the instruction decoder decodes this instruction and identifies the operands required. The operands can be in the registers or it can be in the memory. So depending upon the addressing mode used in the instruction, we will be knowing that whether the operands are there in the register or in the memory. So in some cases, if the addressing mode is register mode, then it means that all the operands are there in the register. So take the or perform the read operation on the registers. If the operand are there in the memory, using the load word instruction, take the operand from the memory. Okay, so the second step is reading the one or two registers or the memory for fetching the operands required to perform this instruction execution. Okay, after these two steps, the actions required to complete the instruction depend on the instruction class. All the instruction classes except jump uses the ALU unit after reading the registers. So depending upon the addressing mode used in the register, we will be having various types of instructions like memory reference instructions, arithmetic logical instructions or branch instructions, right? So if you are having memory reference instruction, that means if the address is indirectly given, then we need to calculate the memory address for getting the operand. Okay, so to that means we need to add some displacement value to the starting address. So in that case, we are making use of this ALU for this address calculation. Okay, so we need to add, so this arithmetic operation addition is performed by the ALU unit. So we are adding the offset value with the starting address. So for the purpose of this address calculation, we can make use of this ALU unit. Or if the operands are directly given, if the operands are there in the register itself, or if the operands are the immediate values, we can directly perform the ALU operation. So we can make use of this ALU for the operation execution. And in the cases of branches, we need to compare the zero flag content, or we need to compare whether the RS equal to RT. If branch on equal or branch not equal, so we need to perform a comparison in the case of branch operation. So this ALU unit can be used for performing the comparison. Okay, so that is the third step. So it depends upon the instruction classes or the addressing mode of the instruction. So after using the ALU in the third step, the actions required to complete various instruction classes differ. So it depends upon the type of the instruction class. So in the case of memory reference instruction, the third step we calculated the memory addresses. So in this step, we need to access the memory either to load or store the data. So in the case of memory reference instruction, the fourth step is accessing the memory, right? But in the case of arithmetic or logical instruction, in the third step, we already completed the execution of the operation, right? So we got the result. So we are writing the data from the ALU now back to the register or to the memory. So in the case of arithmetic or logical instruction, we are writing the data that we got from the ALU back into the register. That is the case of arithmetic or logical instruction. Fine. But in the case of a branch instruction, in the third step, we already performed a comparison, right? So based on the comparison, we are changing the next instruction address in this step. Okay, so we are changing the next instruction address based on the comparison. Otherwise, the PC should be incremented by 4 to get the address of the next instruction. So it depends upon the type of the instruction class, the operations required in the fourth step differs. Let's look in an example. We are having the instruction add R1, R2, R3. When we look into this, we know that this instruction is in the register mode because both the operands are there in the register itself. Okay. The address of this instruction is there in the program counter. So we are taking the content of that memory address, that instruction is loaded into the instruction register. By the time the program counter is incremented by 4, which points to the next instruction to be executed. Okay, now the instruction register holds the instruction to be executed. The instruction decoder decodes this instruction and identifies the operands required to carry out this instruction. So here the operands are R2 and R3. So we are reading, in the second step, we are reading the register contents of R2 and R3. And in the third step, we are performing this addition operation. Okay, so R1 is equal to R2 plus R3 will be performed in the third step. So in the third step, we are performing the ALU operation. Let's look at another example. Add R1 comma hash 220. So when we look into this instruction, we know that it is in the immediate mode. It is in the immediate mode. Okay, the address of this instruction is taken from the program counter. The instruction is loaded into the instruction register, and by the time the program counter is incremented by 4, which points to the next instruction. Fine. This instruction decoder decodes the instruction given in the instruction register and identifies that it requires one operand R1, one operand stored in the register R1. So in the second step, it reads the content of the R1. The second operand is directly given. It is an immediate value, right? So this hash is decoded at this value is taken to be as a constant value. So in the third step, it performs the ALU operation. R1 is equal to R1 plus 220. Okay. The diagrammatic explanation of the steps that we discussed so far is explained here. So the first step is we are taking the content of the PC to get the address of the instruction. So we are fetching the instruction based on the content of this program counter. Okay, then we are decoding this instruction using this instruction decoder, and this instruction decoder identifies the operation and identifies the operands required for the instruction execution. These operands can be either in the memory or in the register. So it performs the register read or memory read. So it performs the memory read or register read, depends upon the type of the addressing mode used in the instruction. Okay, so if it is a memory read, so we need to take the content from the data memory. Okay, so with the help of a multiplexer, we are taking the content of the data memory to the registers. Okay, so that is the second step. We are reading the operands. Then In the third step, we are doing the ALU operation, or we are calculating the memory address. So that one also depends upon the instruction class. The instruction class can be of three types: memory address instruction, or arithmetic instruction, or branch instruction. So if in the case of memory instruction, we need to calculate the address with the help of this ALU unit. If it is arithmetic instruction or arithmetic or logical instructions, we can perform this operation in the third step. And if it is branch operation, we need to perform the comparison. So the branch addresses performs the comparison in the third step. So based on this, the fourth steps also differ. So if in the case of a arithmetic operation, the result is already there or already calculated by the ALU unit. So we need to write the data back to the registers or to the memory. And if it is a memory address operation, we need to access the memory operand. And if it is a branch operation, we already performed the comparison in the third step. So in the fourth step, we need to calculate, or we need to update the address based on this comparison. When we look into this diagram, we can see that various multiplexers are used here. So the top multiplexer controls the value that replaces the program counter. The program counter can be updated with the address of the next instruction, that is the content of the PC plus 4, or it can be updated with a branch address. If the next instruction is a branch instruction, then we need to update with it with the branch address. So the branch address details are there in the instruction. So to the branch address, we are adding this PC plus 4 to get the target address. So either one of this, that is the PC plus 4 or the branch address, will be updated in the PC. So that one is controlled by an AND gate also. So this AND gate determines whether the instruction is a branch instruction or not. So based on that, this multiplexer controls what value replaces the PC, whether the PC is updated by PC plus 4 or with the branch address. Okay. The output of the middle multiplexer is connected to the register file. So as we know, these registers can be used for storing the operands taken from the memory, as well as for storing the temporary results coming out from the ALU unit. So if the operand is there in the memory, we need to load the data from the memory to the register file, and also we need to store the temporary results from the ALU unit to the register file. So either one of this should happen. So we are making use of a multiplexer. So this multiplexer steers the output of the data memory or the ALU unit for writing into registers. So that's the purpose of the middle multiplexer. The bottommost multiplexer is used to determine whether the second ALU input is from the registers or from the offset field of the instructions. Okay. For example, in the case of arithmetic or logical instruction or a branch instruction, the second ALU input is from the registers. Whereas in the case of a load or store instructions, it might be from the offset field of the instructions. Okay, so to determine that, we are making use of this bottommost multiplexer. Okay, this control unit generates the control signals which controls all the components. All the functional components are controlled by the signals generated by the control unit. Okay, now let's discuss about the logic design conventions in the MIPS computers. The data path elements in the MIPS implementation consists of two different types of logic elements: elements that operate on data values and elements that contain state. The elements that operate on data values are all combinational, which means that their output depends only on the current inputs. We are not considering the previous values. Here we are not having any feedback values. The outputs depends only on the current input values. So given the same input, a combinational element always produces the same output. The second type is the element that contains state. The element contains state has some internal storage. So in that it stores the current state. So these logic components are also called as sequential because their outputs depends not only on the current input values but also on their internal state. This internal state is based on the previous input values. So this elements depends not only on the current input values but also on the previous values. So we should have some feedback connection to store the previous value. So we should have some storage to store the state. So a state element has at least two inputs and one output. The required inputs are the data value to be written into the element and the clock, which determines when the data value is written. The output from a state element provides the value that was written in an earlier clock cycle. The D-type flip-flop that has exactly these two inputs and one output is an example for the state element. Clocking methodology is designed to make the hardware predictable. That means when the output is produced or when the inputs are considered to produce the output is predictable if you are making use of a clocking methodology. So this clocking methodology makes use of a timing signal. So based on that signal only, the outputs will be produced. So a clocking methodology defines when signals can be read and when they can be written. So it is important to specify the timings of reads and writes because if a signal is written at the same time it is read, the value of the read could correspond to the old value or the newly written value. So there occurs a confusion. So to avoid that, we are making use of a timing signal called clock signal. Okay, so only when the clock is active, the output will be produced, or the circuit will consider the inputs only when the clock signal is active. An edge-triggered clocking methodology means that any values stored in the sequential logic element are updated only on the particular clock edge. The clock edge can be either rising edge or the falling edge. So only on that particular clock edge, the values will be stored in the sequential logic element. If a clock signal is used by the logic element, then it is called as synchronous systems. So in a synchronous system, this clock determines when elements with state will write the values into the internal storage. Okay. In this given figure, the two state elements surrounds a block of combinational logic which operates in a single clock cycle. All signals must propagate from state element 1 through the combinational logic and to state element 2 in the time of one clock cycle. The time necessary for the signals to reach state element 2 defines the length of the clock cycle. So, how long it takes to reach from the state element 1 to state element 2. So, that determines the length of the clock cycle. The inputs to the state elements are the clock signal as well as the write control signal. So only when the write control signal is asserted and an active clock edge occurs, the state element changes its state. Okay, so this term asserted means the signal is logically high and the term deassert means logically low signal. Only when the write control signal is asserted and an active clock occurs, the state element changes its state. Okay. An edge-triggered methodology allows us to read the contents of the state element, that means of a register, send the value through some combinational logic and write that element in the same clock cycle. With an edge-triggered timing methodology, there is no feedback within a single clock cycle. So in this video, we discussed about the various steps for executing an instruction and also the logic design convention used in the MIPS architectures. Thank you.